Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. This is very important. We're going to read the DOJ indictment of an attorney that helped promote one element of the entire hoax that Trump worked with Russia, which never happened. The whole thing was a myth that they purchased. But this is the attorney, Michael Sussmann, who was charged with making false statements to the FBI. We'll read the DOJ indictment. We'll talk about the special counsel that's ongoing and the fact that his colleagues are almost certainly going to be indicted. There are three major indictments from the Durham probe special counsel. Remember, Mueller was a special counsel. Three major indictments. Sussmann, then you have the indictment of the Steele subsource. Then you have the indictment of Kleinsmith, the FBI attorney. So you have two lawyers and a subsource indicted. That's three indictments, zero media coverage, zero help really from the Republican Party. You have Trump Republicans taking over the House and the Senate. All they're going to do is investigate. That's the only policy that Democrats have had. And that's the same policy the Republicans will have. Investigate, this time for an actual purpose. Okay? They can't find anything on Trump. They've investigated January tax returns, Russia. They found nothing. He's never been indicted. And the people indicted in the Mueller probe were indicted on process crimes, not working with Russia. These people in the special counsel in the Durham probe have been indicted on actually trying to set up and frame Trump. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. To my super chat, I thank you so very much. If you want to support my work in these live streams, your super chat is very important and greatly appreciated. Let's start. Eric, H526, Luke St. Martin, thanks so much for being an amazing moderators. Let's go ahead and start. I want to read you this really quickly. Before we get to Steele dossier funder Mark Elias testified before John Durham's grand jury. Before we get to that, and before we get to Durham confirms active ongoing investigation, ongoing criminal investigation of defendant's conduct, Sussmann and others, and other matters, dozens of interviews, including former senior FBI and members of Clinton campaign. Note, important who Durham has not interviewed may reflect legal status. So we have Catherine Herridge, who's fantastic. And we'll get to Catherine Herridge in a second. We'll get to the issue of Mark Elias in a moment. But I want to read you this. This is very, very, very important, ladies and gentlemen. Very important. So let's go ahead and start this. This is really, really important. Grand jury indicts D.C. attorney with making false statements to the FBI in 2016 regarding alleged communication between Trump Organization and Russia Bank. So the Alpha Bank hoax, see, they believe lies and fake news all the time. What they do is obsessively fact check, and their fact checks are merely rebuttals. So they don't really, when there's a fact check nowadays from Reuters or the Washington Post, and that's been the case for, I would say, since Trump was elected. A fact check should be a simple, okay, who won the World Series in 1955? Well, the Yankees did. No, wrong. Fact check. The Dodgers did. A fact check will show that the Dodgers won the World Series. That's it. A fact check will show the Dodgers won the World Series. And end of story. A fact check is not a rebuttal. It's not an ongoing discussion. It's not trying to refute one viewpoint with another viewpoint. It is simply correcting a false statement and leaving it at that. Now, it is a categorically false statement to say that Trump worked with Russia. It was always an absurd, irrational, apoplectic, and hysterical viewpoint that he might have worked with Russia. There was no evidence. It was called a baseless claim. When claims are made against mashed potato brains and his son. And he's on tape saying he forced out a prosecutor. Paul Bartlett! Paul Bartlett, thank you. Thank you, Paul, to my super chat. Thank you so much. I will have a live stream also, Paul, around 7 p.m. tonight. So be here for the live stream, everybody, around 7 p.m. tonight, Pacific. Paul Bartlett, thank you again. So kind of you, as always. To my super chat, thank you. When there is a fact check pertaining to Trump Russia or January or Trump's tax returns or anything that they're investigating, they are not investigating based on any allegation that Trump committed a specific criminal act. They are looking for a criminal act, okay? When money flowed into the Clinton Foundation from Uranium One, or when money flowed into Hunter's bank accounts from all different locations, and his emails showed that he engaged in pay-to-play schemes. It's actually within his emails. How can you use your influence on behalf of the company? It's literally within his emails. When the DNC emails showed they railroaded Bernie Sanders, and they cheated their own candidates and Bernie Sanders, okay? Twice, by the way. I mean, we don't have to... The same thing essentially happened in 2020. But anyway, they're caught in the act. With Trump, they don't have any emails. They don't have any lost laptops. They don't have a foundation where he's taking money from interests, and then those interests are being given favorable treatment. Okay? Freedom Autopsy Report! H.A., you were at your best when you do straight reporting. Thank you so very much, Freedom. Thank you so very much. Greatly appreciated. Freedom Autopsy, thank you. Paul Bartlett, Freedom, thank you so very, very much. Thank you for the kind words and greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. So, basically, what's taking place is these people, thank you, Freedom, thank you, Paul Bartlett. What these people do is the media creates this hysteria on any topic. They make a great deal of money. When there's a story like Alec Baldwin, where he ends someone's life utilizing a firearm, which can't be, Alec Baldwin is the living antithesis of what a liberal should be. He ended someone's life utilizing a firearm, then blamed the victim. Okay? Yet, media can't touch the story. The Durham probe special counsel exists because they should never have even investigated Trump. It was completely baseless. The notion that he worked with Russia was baseless from the start. You had Clapper and Brennan and Comey and others who were partisan, who despised Trump. You even had text messages from Peter Strzok saying, "We will stop Trump." If they said, "We will stop Clinton" or mashed potato brains Biden, then what do you think would have taken place? All of media would have said, "Oh my God, these are Trump loyalists within the FBI." So that's the context. The context is, Donnie, hello. The context is media is going to paint a picture. They're going to lie by omission, and they're going to ignore any story that undermines their narrative, their hoaxes, their myths, their lies. If you lie by omission, if you focus only on the Mueller probe and you don't focus on the Durham probe as media, then you can continue your myth and your hoaxes and your bogus, absurd stories, okay? There was never any evidence obtained by the United States from within U.S. intelligence agencies, not confirmation of this, confirmation, then they play these games, but there was never any evidence obtained from within the United States of America from within the Central Intelligence Agency or the Federal Bureau of Investigation or the National Security Agency. Nobody within those government agencies created or derived or obtained information from within our own using the resources within those government agencies to state, okay, we have emails, we have this data, we have this evidence that Trump is a Putin Kremlin puppet or operative. That never happened. They had to purchase a Steele dossier. And then they had to go with the hunch or the viewpoint or they had to go with the belief from media. So what they would do is feed media the Steele dossier. Then everyone would get suspicious. And they utilized suspicion. They utilized suspicion as an actual tool to just investigate Trump. Usually you can't investigate with just mere suspicion. You have to have evidence. They never had evidence. You can't just say, well, other intelligence agencies told us. You can't just say that. You can't just say, well, other intelligence agencies were worried, and there was a meeting between George Papadopoulos and Alexander Downer, the Australian diplomat, in London, and he knew about the DNC emails. So therefore, because he knew, we're going to investigate Trump. Or because, Michael Flynn, we're investigating Michael Flynn, and he never did anything wrong, but he lied to Peter Strzok, who basically saved Clinton from certain Espionage Act laws, possible indictment, and almost certain indictment if it were anyone else. And he literally stated, we'll stop Trump, but he's the one who says that Michael Flynn lied. And why did they investigate Michael Flynn? For no reason. They had already heard his phone calls with Sergei Kislyak. And so any type of behavior that they deemed improper resulted in enough suspicion where this monstrosity of an investigation continue to grow into a special counsel Mueller. What was the evidence to start Mueller's probe? Nothing. There was no evidence other than Comey's memos. So you have to understand how all of this started to get to the Durham probe. When you look at Michael Sussmann and the fact that he is indicted for lying to the FBI, the one thing in Sussmann's defense, the FBI knew he was lying, or knew that the information he had wasn't really based on any fact, more suspicion or innuendo than anything else. But they didn't care. And he spoke to James Baker, the top legal counsel for James Comey. Baker didn't care. None of those people cared. It was all a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's just go ahead and set up Trump, frame him, utilize the United States government against him. And the most hilarious and pathetic thing is that you have these pundits on the left who truly believe with all their heart that Peter Strzok was not partisan. But you better believe that if Peter Strzok went after any Democrat, they would claim he should have recused himself 20 years ago. So that's the way they work. And they only care any authority, any expert, any official that disagrees with them is viewed as a quack, a person who is outside the mainstream, should never be trusted. But then simultaneously they say, well, you only trust people with certain credentials. But if people with certain credentials disagree with the consensus that they've forced and coerced and fabricated and intimidated into existence, well, then you know what? You should that's fine. It's all about the consensus. So if media believes, based on the expert opinion of people like Peter Strzok and Clapper and Brennan and Comey, that Trump should be investigated based on suspicion alone, then that's enough. Comey's memos were the only reason that they started the Mueller probe. Tell me a piece of evidence they had, emails, money flow, intelligence operative meetings. How many Trump officials met with Russian intelligence officials? How many Trump officials met with Russian intelligence officials? I'd love to know. Okay. How do you have a how do you have 4 years of investigating Trump, whether it's his tax returns or January or I mean all their obsessions, they have no policies. Okay, they keep talking about their policies. They have no policies. Okay? Yes, the child tax credit is good. That could be a standalone bill. Okay, yes, there's certain like did they pass Medicare for all or any Green New Deal legislation? No, they lied to their voters about that. They cheated Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was completely railroaded. So I mean, we're going to get to this in a second, but you have to understand this is what they're trying to do is run out the clock on memory. on the collective consciousness or memory of the country. They don't want anyone to realize, and half the country already does, but they don't want anyone to realize that they have completely fabricated a myth. And they did so with the help of media. They fed media nonsense on the Steele dossier. You can look right here. This is a completely debunked, baseless compilation of lies, and this is how media reported. Behind the dossier, the Steele dossier retrospective. How Christopher Steele compiled the dossier. Could you imagine if they said how Steve Bannon and Roger Stone compiled the anti-Hunter dossier? Could you imagine that? Ladies and gentlemen, could you imagine that? Could you imagine how Peter Schweitzer wrote his book, Clinton Cash, which, by the way, is a fantastic book, and he has other books out. Could you imagine how Stephen Miller compiled his information, or how Rudy Giuliani compiled information on Hunter's emails? You would never get that. Then you have Wikipedia, which is like, let's just see how biased this is. Don't you love this? A controversial political opposition research report. No, it's not. It's a compilation of lies. Nothing was true in it, but it's controversial. NPR described the research. This is supposed to be, Wikipedia is supposed to be the, Encyclopedia Britannica of the internet, which is, of course, it's not. It's highly partisan. NPR, why didn't you put Breitbart? Why didn't they put Fox News? Oh, NPR is supposed to be nonpartisan. It is extremely partisan. It maybe 20 years ago was nonpartisan. NPR describes as unsubstantiated, salacious material. And so they describe the research, and the word, I'm not going to use the word, but here, let's say intriguing dossier. It was not intriguing. It was all unsubstantiated, and it was all a bunch of nonsense. Some aspects of the dossier has been corroborated. No, nothing has been corroborated. Nothing important. Nothing important. So that's like saying, you know what? People breathe. People actually consumed breathed air and they existed. So therefore, the dossier has been corroborated. Certain locations actually existed. Yeah, okay. In particular, confirmed by the office that Putin and Russia actively favored Trump over Clinton. That's not confirmed. That is okay. This is an example here. Some aspects of the dossier, in particular, what Newsweek calls its main finding. What? The main finding was not that Russia wanted Clinton, which was, by the way, the director of national intelligence assessment. How can you confirm something by an assessment? Confirmed by an assessment? Confirmed by the assessment of an intelligence agency? What? What does that even mean? That's like saying I confirm that Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. Why? Because I spoke to 10 sports writers and 9 out of 10 agreed that Michael Jordan, and you know what? It was a sports writer conference, and this is the Sports Writers of America, and you know what? That's our assessment, and the assessment was confirmed by a dossier that was purchased by the Chicago Bulls. Are you kidding me? This is complete nonsense. No wonder the country's no wonder people are disowning friends on the left, like lifelong liberal Democrats are disowning lifelong friends because they believe rubbish and nonsense. You cannot confirm. An assessment is not a categorical conclusion. It's an assessment. They just from let's say the intelligence agencies are deliberately vague all the time. That's what they do. They're just vague and ambiguous. They never say categorically we have this because they don't want to be sued. That's why the ODNI report and the DHS report came with disclaimers. All these disclaimers should not be taken as fact. Highly confident. So you have here a complete. This is what Wikipedia is all about. Some aspects of the dossier have been corroborated, in particular what Newsweek calls its main finding. What Newsweek calls? Who cares what Newsweek calls it? Who cares what any publication? Why wasn't Breitbart or The Blaze or why don't they ever? They never, or The Federalist. Why don't they just, or Daily Caller? You're never going to get that from Wikipedia. You'll get left-leaning publications or publications. Newsweek is not always left-leaning, actually. But you'll get publications that generally, whether it's NPR, the Washington Post, the New York Times, BuzzFeed, they're always going to side with Democrats. But you can't, this is not confirmed by January 17th, Office of Director of National Intelligence assessment. An assessment cannot confirm anything, and an intelligence agency can never confirm anything unless they show you the actual evidence or data. This is doublespeak. This is exactly what George Orwell talked about. Again, these concepts, though, are they're so simple. These are vapid semantic games. Deceptive, manipulative, semantic games. It's so easy. That's like saying, you know what? Russia wants you to vote for Trump. Well, how do we know? Well, it's been confirmed by the Director of National Intelligence. Well, how was it confirmed? Well, they came out with an assessment. Well, was the assessment a categorical claim that could be held up in court? No, but you know what? It's a confirmation of an assessment of a viewpoint. I mean, it's unbelievable. Then Trump had officials had multiple secret contacts with Russians. No, they didn't. With Russians, you can speak with any Russian you'd like, just like you can speak with any American. How about Russian operatives? This is how they get away with everything. How about actual spies or actual espionage? And then however, many allegations remain unverified. So this is how Wikipedia and others, especially Wikipedia, but also the mainstream, they start off with a categorical lie by omission and the most absurd claim that anything, a confirmation is a word to confirm something is to state that something is a categorical fact. When you confirm, the laws of gravity, or you confirm that God forbid, a car accident took place, you'll take a picture of the car accident, or you'll drop an apple for the laws of gravity. You can confirm this. Okay? You cannot confirm an assessment from an intel agency that is shadowy and secretive. And that's all they do is just, it's like confirming the opinion of that's like confirming the viewpoint of an op-ed writer. It's an opinion. Whether your opinion is based on fact is still your opinion. You've never showed, the Director of National Intelligence never showed any evidence. And the evidence was literally purchased. So again, this is like, you can't confirm an assessment by the Director of National Intelligence or any secretive agency or, intel agency. It doesn't work like that. Just like when they do the same thing. The intel assessment was confirmed by the Senate panel. So what? The opinion was confirmed by the opinion of the Senate panel. Who cares? You're not getting, like, you could, the day that the Director of National Intelligence says that Hunter was selling access to the U.S. government because of an assessment is the day that Democrats everywhere jettison their loyalty to the intel officials. The day that Clapper or Brennan or Comey or Strzok or the Director of National Intelligence at the moment says, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's true actually. Rudy Giuliani's opposition research, that has actually been confirmed, a lot of it, by our assessment." That's the day that you will get the classical or the old school liberal mentality, like, hey, wait a second, you can't trust these agencies. So, but here, how the dossier was foreign purchased, how the dossier was purchased. And you have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where, let's go ahead and read this. So, all of this, you can't confirm an intelligence assessment because you're not looking at any underlying data. You're just trusting the agency, or you're not looking at any evidence that the agency is providing. The agency is just very political in nature, whether it's the Gulf of Tonkin or WMD, and almost always we find out that these agencies lie through their teeth, okay, all the time. But here, grand jury indicts D.C. attorney for making false statements to the FBI in 2016 regarding alleged communications between Trump Organization and Russia Bank. Now, just like the Newsweek, its main theme was confirmed that Russia wanted Trump, there's no evidence that Russia wanted Trump. If anything, you could look at what's taking place. Russia would much rather have Biden. Look what's happening now. They're about to invade Ukraine under Biden's watch. Why didn't they invade Ukraine under Trump's watch? That's a question that should be answered. I'd love to hear that. Could you imagine if they invaded Ukraine under Trump? Oh my God, he's a puppet. Look, you see what's happening? And then with Biden, oh well, that's not Biden's fault. Trump is still a puppet. Like, in the face of a reality that is the antithesis of what they claim exists, it's impossible for them to see their lies like crumbling before them. It's like That's why they have to continue. They can continue. And when you call out these, when you explain to these people, and I know people like this, they completely hyperventilate. They can't accept it. It's like it's like a cult, and you're telling the cult follower that the leader is just a human being, and oh, by the way, a criminal. But Special Counsel John Durham announced that a federal grand jury returned an indictment in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia charging Michael A. Sussmann, a Washington, D.C. based attorney, with making false statements to the FBI on September 19, 2016. The charge in the indictment stems from allegations brought by Sussmann to the FBI related to an alleged secret channel of communication between the Trump Organization and a Russia bank. What good did it do this man Sussmann what good did it do as a political operative who was also an attorney to go to bat for the Clintons, or go to bat for Democrats, or go to bat for Biden, or go to bat for anyone? What good did it do him? It's like there's no honor among thieves. They're all turning on each other. That's why, like, eventually, you're going to have a situation where if you engage in criminal conduct or unethical or shady or despicable conduct, everyone you're working with is going to turn on you, because if they're going to engage in that behavior with you, at the end of the day, they're going to turn on you and focus on themselves. So that's what Baker, one of the people he spoke to, did, or that's what the FBI did. They went ahead and like Sussmann is expected to make his initial appearance. Okay, as alleged in the indictment, on September 19, 2016, Sussmann, a lawyer at a large international law firm, met with FBI general counsel at the headquarters in Washington, D.C. Okay, do you think the general counsel of the Federal Bureau of Investigation really believed that Trump was communicating? You think that maybe the National Security Agency and every other agency we have is monitoring his communication? Maybe, just maybe. You think maybe they had every single email that he's ever written Trump? You think maybe this is a pretext to just continue lies? And by the way, Jake Sullivan continued the same lie. So this attorney in a D.C. law firm, Perkins Coie, that worked with, by the way, other attorneys that are even more, involved in deceiving the entire country by literally purchasing the dossier. There's no evidence at all that Russia wanted Trump. Zero evidence aside from an assessment and a viewpoint by Intel, confirmed by the Senate, confirmed by Newsweek, confirmed by... You can't confirm something that it was originally a viewpoint. An assessment is a viewpoint. You're assessing the situation. You are looking at it from what we can gather, we assess the following. That is not a categorical claim. It's not a fact. So therefore, you can't confirm something that's not a categorical claim. But you need these absurd hoaxes. So this attorney goes to the general counsel to try to say, oh well, we think that Trump is communicating with Russia through a server. Meanwhile, Madam Secretary had servers for 4 years outside of the United States government with top secret intelligence on them, and Peter Strzok and Comey were just fine with that. The FBI under Comey was just fine with top secret intelligence somehow being placed on servers outside of the United States government. No problem. But Alpha Bank and Trump, we're gonna have to notify the general counsel. Okay? We'll have to notify the general counsel. First name, last name, hello. Exactly. Exactly. People want to believe, people suspend logic if their biases are bolstered. Okay? Um, they suspend logic. If you could give me some evidence that Trump worked with Russia, I'd love to see it, or that Russia wanted Trump. You could say that any incoming candidate with a different foreign policy than his predecessor was being groomed by a country that he's less hawkish against. I mean, you think of this vapid game. You could just say, when President Obama came into the White House, there were articles, Russian reset. Did Putin want President Obama? There was a Russian reset after all. Oh, no, 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 no. No, no, no. Could you imagine if Bush's intelligence agencies, could you imagine if they said that President Obama was a Russian operative or Putin puppet? Could you imagine? Nobody would believe it. They would say, where's the evidence? Then the Republicans would say, well, it's an assessment confirmed by this Senate panel. Then they'd say what I'm saying. Well, so what? The assessment was just a viewpoint anyway. The logic, basic logic, is completely doesn't exist. Monique! Wait, so Durham is completely serious? Absolutely, Monique, he's absolutely serious. The thing is, it's a special counsel that's ongoing, and it's given zero media coverage. Imagine if Mueller was given zero media coverage, but it's a special counsel just like Mueller. It's indicted 3 people, and it's on its way to indicting more. Monique Smith, thank you so very much. The secret spaceship. Here's a little something towards an inflated brand. Six-pack orange power, thanks H8. The secret spaceship, thank you so very much. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. Monique and the secret spaceship, thank you. Your support, on these live super chats and the live stream, I can do these live streams because of your support, and I just appreciate it very, very much. And I'm going to be doing a lot more on the Durham probe this month because very few people are talking about it. You look at the secret spaceship and Monique. Thank you so much. The secret spaceship, Monique, everybody here, Paul, everybody here. I've been doing something lately, and I've been looking at Freedom Autopsy, everybody here. I've been doing something lately, the secret spaceship and Monique, so you don't have to do this. I've been actually looking at what the million sub left-leaning YouTube pundits are talking about. And just because I want to see, it's not enjoyable. It is not enjoyable, but I want to see what they're obsessed about or what they're talking about lately. I want to see what their thought process is. I want to see how they view the world, or what their new obsession is. And do you want to know, Monique and the secret spaceship and everybody here, do you want to know what their obsession is? It's the same thing that CNN and MSNBC, and it's the what flows downhill. They have not given up on certain dogma. It's religious doctrine. And Trump is still bad, and they're obsessed with what, and that's it. The world and Ukraine, Russia, the impending stock market crash, the Durham probe, which is essentially the Mueller probe, secret spaceship, Monique, the Mueller probe and the Durham probe are the same special counsels. The difference, though, is that there's zero media support for the Durham probe and very little political support until we get Trump Republicans. And by the way, the special counsel could go on forever. So once we get Trump Republicans in the Senate and the House, it's a completely new ballgame. Now Durham will have the political support and media support. Once more indictments take place, you'll get the media support from Fox News and conservative publications. More so, there's already interest in it. I've written a bunch of articles in the Federalist on the Durham probe. But you need some political will, and right now people are in a fantasy world. The secret spaceship, Monique, everybody here, they're in a fantasy world. The stock market is in a slow collapse. The economy is a, contrived, fake, phony, super bubble, according to Jeremy Grantham, where we've pumped $10 trillion into the economy. $10 trillion. Really quickly. I just want to read you this really, really quickly. It relates to why the Durham probe isn't front and center in the news, but here. All right, let's just really quickly. Okay, this is his firm, GMO, Jeremy Grantham. Check this out, people. This is so interesting. And this is like, sorry, that was the chair, not me. This is so interesting. And this relates to why I've been obsessed over the stock market crash and predicted it in my October article in the Federalist of last year. I just want to read you this because it's really, really, really important. We're in a fantasy world that's going to come crashing down, and the fantasy was basically purchased yet again by Democrats. They ended economic activity and they pumped $10 trillion into the economy, and the market's going to absolutely crash. Introduction. The bubble, no one wants to hear the bear case. It's the worst kind of party pooping. For bubbles, especially super bubbles, we are now in. We are often the most exhilarating financial experiences of a lifetime. Now, the last time it looked like we might have a super bubble. Okay, so hold on one second. Let's go down really quickly. One of the main reasons I deplore super bubbles and resent the Fed and other financial authorities for allowing and facilitating them is the under-recognized damage that bubbles cause as they deflate the market, as they deflate and mark down our wealth. As bubbles form, $10 trillion into the economy, which, by the way, when you end economic activity and pump $10 trillion, you still have inflation, you still have key labor shortages, you still have, look what's happening with the truckers. God bless all the truckers. God bless you. And I know that there are a lot of truckers who watch my channel, and I love you. God bless you. God bless you. But you see what's taking place. Inflation is through the roof, and the producer price index is always going to be high because of supply chain breakdown. You can't reduce inflation even if you raise interest rates because the supply chain is broken. You can't reduce inflation when you have a broken supply chain because producers are going to produce goods and services that are more expensive than they would be if you had a normal supply chain and you broke the supply chain because you ended economic activity because all the, you're wrong, Dr. Rand, told you to do so. Or those wonderful officials and experts and, I love the mentality. They say, if you're not an expert, you shouldn't talk. Okay, well, this expert disagrees. That person is wrong. You should never be listened to. It's like, they're just petulant. But anyway, this relates directly to the Durham probe. Why? We're living in a fantasy world. The Durham probe is reality. The Mueller probe was fantasy. The Mueller probe was looking for a crime. The Durham probe is indicting people because they committed the crime of setting up and framing Trump. Okay? This is a special counsel that is being overshadowed by the bubble we're living in. Let's just read this really quickly. This should be standard reading for everyone in their 20s and 30s. Well, in their 20s, at least. Because when you're young, you can't imagine an economic bubble popping. I couldn't at all. But here, one of the main reasons then as bubbles break, they crush most of those dreams and accelerate the negative economic forces on the way down. Remember, I told you hedge funds are going down. There's going to be hedge funds that go under because of margin calls linked to derivatives trades, just like Archegos. To allow bubbles, let alone help them along, is simply bad economic policy. That's exactly what Jerome Powell did. That's exactly what Biden and Jerome Powell and Democrats and Pelosi have done. They create dilemmas, poverty. This is the thing. They're tubing themselves on the left. Oh, childhood poverty is reduced. You caused it. You caused this childhood poverty. The childhood poverty rate is terrible in major cities like New York City. You cause this poverty by ending economic activity, preventing parents from working. Then you say you're going to give an eviction moratorium. Well, at the end of the day, you caused the problem. Democrats are like an auto body shop that takes your car and crashes it into a tree and then says, we're going to fix your car for free. Well, you crashed it into a tree. Yeah, go ahead and fix it. I mean, the damage you've caused in the meantime is horrible. Democrats will say, oh, let's steer the ship into the iceberg, but we'll provide the lifeboats. We're the Democrats. Well, you sunk the entire ship. I guess the lifeboats are pretty good now. What nobody seems to discuss is that higher-priced assets are simply worse than lower-priced ones. When farms or commercial forests, for example, double price so that yields fall from 6 to 3%, actually, you feel richer. But your wealth compounds much more slowly at bubble pricing, and your income also falls behind. Some deal. Okay, so goes on. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Today, Nerd Alert. I will cover more of the definitions and statistics, the history, the technical details of super bubbles. The bottom line is that in general, the bubbles and multiple assets, not just equities, have continued to inflate, and therefore the potential pain from a break has increased. As usually happens, the equity bubble begins to deflate from the riskiest end of the market first, as it has been doing so since last February. So let's just really quickly, and then we'll get back to the indictment. So this is supposed to be a Sigma 3 bubble we're entering. Sigma 2. So the whole thing's going to crash this year. And I've been saying that since October of last year. I wrote about that in the Federalist. When it happens, people are going to actually say, wait a second, everything we've been told about Trump Russia not only is a lie, it's completely irrelevant to national security or my pocketbook. Why are Democrats focusing on January and Rudy Giuliani? And it has nothing to do with, they have no policy, so they have to investigate. Okay, Trump had policies. Democrats didn't like them. But We had record low unemployment, hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. Fact. It is a fact we had hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs, and 200,000 lost under President Obama. Trump said, I'm going to revive manufacturing, and hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs were created. And CEOs said, we have to engage in tariffs. And was there short-term loss? Yes. But then the left says, oh, the tariffs caused all this loss short-term. Yeah, because they're a negotiating tool that's meant to last perhaps more than 1 month, 2 months, or even a year. It's the CEOs, like the Steele CEOs, were looking at things from a 2, 5, 6, 7, 10-year perspective. But anyway, all 2 sigma equity bubbles in developed countries have broken back to trend, but before they did, a handful went up to become super bubbles of 3 sigma or greater in the U.S. in 1929 and 2000, and in Japan in 1989. They were also super bubbles in housing in the U.S. in 2006 and Japan in 1989. All 5 of these super bubbles corrected all the way back to trend with much greater and longer pain than average. Today in the U.S., we are in the 4th super bubble of the last 100 years. The 4th super bubble. Thank you, Democrats. Thank you, experts. Thank you, authorities. We wouldn't have been in this super bubble had they not ended economic activity. There's other ways of describing. When I say ended economic activity, it is forbidden to actually. It is forbidden because free speech does not exist, but it is forbidden to explain further. So I say end economic activity 2 years ago, and we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. Previous equity super bubbles had a series of distinct features. Okay. All right, we'll end this really quickly. This is just so interesting. Check it out. But now, for the first time in the US, we have simultaneous bubbles across all major asset classes. First, we are indeed participating in the broadest and most extreme global real estate bubble in history. Today, houses in the US are the highest multiple of any family income ever. After a record 20% gain last year and ahead even of the disastrous housing bubble of 2006. Oh my God. Oh my God. So we're also in a housing bubble. Okay. But how does this relate to the Durham probe? Because the Durham probe is being ignored or overshadowed by a fantasy world. The fantasy world is going to come crashing down. The market went up Friday. Okay, you can look. Market went up in October of 1929. It had up days in October. And on the way down, the crash down, there were up days too after the crash. But once you have a loss of confidence, because I've been saying this is a Steele dossier economy and stock market. It's a Trump-Russia economy and stock market. It's a Rachel Maddow Trump tax segment economy. These are all fantasies. Liberal Democrats create these fantasies that everyone has to suffer from, because once people realize that the lie by omission or overt lies are nothing more than propaganda, then they say, okay, well, why am I believing all of this nonsense? That's what already people don't have any faith in media because they know media lies by omission. The lies by omission are unbelievable. But here, and so from an economic perspective, when people lose confidence, because the last thing in American society people have truly confidence in is the economy generally, okay? Generally. They think that most people, I would say, are concerned perhaps that we'll have that of the labor shortages and the supply chain issues and inflation, but they're still confident. They're still confident that, you know what, the economy will be fine. And if you just, you know what, at the end of the day, Republicans and Democrats can go at it, and Trump could be an orange monster authoritarian, Cheeto authoritarian, and Democrats can, promise the world and virtue, and tell the world how glorious and virtuous they are. But at the end of the day, the U.S. economy will just be fine. Not. The reason it won't be fine is because Democratic policies. They ended economic activity, and then they continued with protocols that harm economic activity. And we are now in a super bubble. JG! JG, hello! Always an honor for me, JG, hello. First, we are indeed participating in the broadest and most extreme real estate bubble in history. Today, houses in the U.S. are at the highest multiple of family income ever. Okay? That is interesting. That is interesting. That relates directly to the Durham probe. I'll tell you why, because we're in a fantasy world where we can't look at, if the Durham probe is trying to pop the Mueller bubble, nobody's going to look at, or media isn't going to touch the Durham probe if they're still in the fantasy world of the economic bubble we're in. Okay? Mueller, the Federal Reserve, and Congress pumping $10 trillion, these are all fantasies of Democrats that people suffered from. And then we're going to suffer a great deal, unfortunately. I'd say, if I was in the market now, I'm not telling anyone what to do. I would pull out, keep cash for the next 2 years or year and a half at least, and I would be a happy camper. And I wouldn't, if I'm wrong, if Jeremy Grantham is wrong, he's a million times more knowledgeable than I am, or any other person who thinks the stock market crash is upon us, which it is, but the one day 2,000, 3,000 point drop hasn't happened yet. I would be fine. The greatest dilemma with investing is, it's almost like a gambling problem. It's like, well, if I pull the money out, you shouldn't time the market. That's true, but these are unique economic times. They're like, oh well, if I pull the money out and it goes up, then I lose money. Yeah, but it's a bubble of epic proportions. So what are the chances it's going to go? What, the Dow is going to go to 40,000 based on what? Labor shortages and inflation and mashed potato brains and Ukraine and Russia and China, Taiwan. These are the things that's going to help the U.S. economy. Unfortunately, like, that's why I say, your life, everyone here, the life of everyone here should be on the upswing. It doesn't matter if the market crashes, the economy crashes, and we have, on the brink of nuclear annihilation. You should be happy. You should focus on love and laughter and life and happiness. And you shouldn't care what people think of you, and you shouldn't care about media and, whatever's going on. You should just focus on your loved ones and happiness and joy and success. Your business can be successful even in a terrible economic time if you just prepare and know that, this is all because of Democratic Party policies. You can't end economic activity, then pump in $10 trillion and pretend you're just fine. But we're on the downswing. We're not on the upswing. And it's directly because of mashed potato brains and people within media who promote and push every absurd policy. But here, really quickly, and we'll end this, and we'll just go back to the Steele dossier, the indictment. But here, today, houses in the U.S. are the highest multiple of family income ever, after a record 20% gain last year, ahead even of the disastrous housing bubble of 2006. But although the U.S. housing market is selling at a high multiple of family income, it is less, sometimes far less, than many other countries, Canada, Australia, the UK, and especially China. In China, real estate has played an unusually important and unique role in the extended boom and therefore poses an equally unique risk to the economy and hence the rest of the world if the real estate market loses air exactly as it appears to be doing as we sit. Evergrande in China has defaulted and has to be restructured. Now, everyone is skating on thin ice. China, US, everyone is economically. Second, we have the most exuberant, ecstatic, even crazy investor behavior in the history of the US stock market. The US market today, in my opinion, the greatest buy-in ever to the idea that stocks only go up. So really quickly, and then we'll end this. It's just, I find it so interesting. Jeremy Grantham is amazing. Okay, so we reach Sigma 3. Check this out. Rules of Bubble reviewed for distracted readers or people watching on H.A. Goodman's live stream. Or because of H.A. Goodman. Timothy Hill! Keep up the good work, H.A. This is just the beginning. Thank you, Timothy! Thank you, Timothy. Greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. I agree. I agree. Timothy, thank you so very much. I hope you're having a great weekend. I hope you're having a great Saturday. And thank you so much, Timothy. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Timothy, everybody here, all Sigma 2 equity bubbles in developed equity markets have burst all the way back to trend. So the US reached 2 sigma level in the summer of 2020. Wow. I guess that was when all the money was started pumping in. The economy wasn't good though. The economy was still barely trying to rebound. I mean, it wasn't even starting the rebound. So that was probably when all the money got pumped in. But some of them went to 3 sigma or more before they burst, producing longer and deeper pain. The US reached 3 sigma, which is, the way they measure bubbles. 3 sigma in late 2021. That's when I wrote my Federalist article. Man, I must be a genius. Not. I predicted the stock market crash we're seeing, what we're going to see much worse, unfortunately. I don't want it to happen. Bitcoin will get to 10,000. Unfortunately, Bitcoin will get to 10,000. I respect people who invest in Bitcoin. I respect the philosophy behind it. I don't, but it's going to get to 10,000 and the Dow will get to around 20,000. And once the investor sentiment is truly, once investors are petrified, because, one thing with media and social media, Timothy, thank you again. One thing with media and social media, emotions are amplified. Emotions are amplified. Like, if people are frightened, they're a lot more frightened because of Twitter and Facebook. If people are suspicious, they're a lot more suspicious. Propaganda is emotion, it's not information. It's about emotion. Sentiment and emotion is what that's the currency that Democrats hold. And it used to be the currency that was utilized by Republicans. Now, not so much. At least not Trump Republicans. They always say that Trump demonized and vilified. He really didn't. He'll make one statement, or he's made one or two statements here and there that are crude and maybe shouldn't have made. And then media will say, "My God, look what he's doing," and they'll create this frenzy, this hysterical frenzy he told you, he suggested you, oh my God, and Drano, and oh my God, and Formula 409, no. It's like, he never said any of that. He never told anyone to do anything, and he was thinking out loud, and he probably shouldn't have done that, but he never, almost always what media does is they will inject their own sensibilities, liberal democratic sensibilities, and then create this alternate reality where they try their best to paint Trump as a monster, and at the end of the day, 73 million Americans still vote for him. So, but here, timing is uncertain when you get to 3 sigma bubbles such as we have now. There are a few examples, yet they have all shown the certain characteristics before they broke. A speculative investor frenzy that generated stories for distant decades. Oh, wow. Which we have had for well over a year. A penultimate phase where stock gains accelerate as we had in 2020, and the ultimate narrowing phase unique to these few Super Bowls where a decreasing number of very few large chips go up as riskier and more speculative stocks underperform or even decline as they did in 1929 and 2000 and since February 2021. So there you go. Sorry, I found it so interesting that, but that's why, people don't really see what's going on with the Durham probe. It's a special counsel. It's going to indict a lot of people. But people the average person doesn't really know much about it because they're stuck in a bubble, economic bubble, stock market bubble, media bubble. That's why, you should watch this channel. But here, as alleged in the indictment, on September 9, 2016, Sussmann, a lawyer at an international law firm, met with general counsel at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Sussmann had requested the meeting to provide the general counsel with certain data files and white papers that allegedly demonstrated a covert communication channel between Trump Organization and Russia-based bank. Sussmann had previously represented the Democratic National Committee. They should never have even met with the man. Could you imagine? Well, if Rudy Giuliani went to the FBI and said, "Okay, you know what? I have a report that I want you to read on Hunter." They would never listen to him. Media would never allow this, but of course they ran with the story. The double standard is like unbelievable. The double standard is mind-boggling. It's like mind-boggling. Why on earth is there this double standard? Why? How did we get to this as a society? How did we get to this? It's interesting. How did we get to this double standard? How did we get to this double standard as a society? That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting thought or question. This double standard, it's just unbelievable. So let's continue. This is thrilling information. Met with general counsel to certify files and papers allegedly demonstrating a covert communications channel between Trump Organization and Russia Bank. Sussmann, who had previously represented the Democratic National Committee in connection with a cyber hack, falsely stated to the general counsel that he was not bringing these allegations to the FBI on behalf of any clients. J-Spot 51, weaponized hypocrisy, exactly. This is hilarious. You think the general counsel, J-Spot, thank you. You think the general counsel at the Federal Bureau of Investigation truly believed? You think James Baker truly believed that Sussman wasn't working on behalf of the DNC? You think they were duped? So Sussman is, very likely innocent. He's very likely innocent of what he's being accused of because they were all in on setting up Trump. You think that the general counsel at the highest law enforcement agency in the country really believed that a DNC lawyer was just doing, was just thinking of national security and altruism, and he didn't care about actually setting up and framing Trump? Oh my God. But see, this is what happens. They're all turning on each other. They're all turning on each other. This false representation led to general counsel to understand that Sussman was providing information as a good citizen. As a good citizen. Could you imagine this nonsense? He was just being, we thought, we at the Federal Bureau of Investigation thought he was just being a good citizen. We thought the former DNC lawyer, or the current DNC lawyer, was actually just being a good citizen. Can you believe this? Rather than a paid advocate or political operative, in fact, Sussman assembled and conveyed the allegations to the FBI on behalf of at least two clients, including U.S. technology executive and the Clinton presidential campaign. There you go. The Clinton presidential campaign, according to this, hired Sussman or was paying Sussman. And so he went to the FBI. And of course they knew. Of course Baker, the general counsel there, knew. But again, it's like, this is all like fantasy world. Durham has to slowly peel back the layers of all the deception. You mean you were working on behalf of Democrats? No. Impossible. Oh my God. In fact, Sussman assembled and conveyed the allegations to the FBI on behalf of at least two clients. It is alleged that beginning in July 2016, Sussman worked for the aforementioned U.S. technology executive, other cyber researchers, and a U.S.-based investigative firm to assemble the data and papers that Sussman ultimately. So, I mean, this was just a tech company hired to create this nonsense. Technology executive exploited his access to non-public data at multiple internet companies. Oh my God, see? So, it further alleged that Sussman's false statements misled Federal Bureau of Investigation personnel and deprived the agency of information that might have permitted it more fully to assess and uncover the origins of the relevant data. So, gee, it wasn't including the identities and motivations of Sussman's clients. Gee, it wasn't it wasn't Comey's fault. He was just given this information, and he thought that the information was just like from a good citizen. The fact that the good citizen was working for the DNC had no, I mean, I'm sure that he was just completely unbiased. Could you imagine this? Could you imagine the reverse if the reverse were true? Could you imagine if the reverse were true? We are. Look at this. We are. Rensler, I agree. Could you imagine if the reverse were true, ladies and gentlemen? If Rudy Giuliani, they look at Rudy Giuliani and they're like, oh, he is so biased. He is a Trump lackey. Well, nobody knows who Michael Sussmann is. Nobody knows who Christopher Steele is. Nobody knows who all of these people working on behalf of Trump's direct political rivals. We live in a world, okay? Jeffrey, hello. We live in a world where we have access to information, and it's easier to deceive now. It is easier to deceive. How the internet made it easier to deceive when it was supposed to be the information superhighway, that is like what happened is when you harness emotion, when you're able to harness emotion, ladies and gentlemen, and Monique, this ties into your super chat. When you can harness emotion, you're capable of pretty much convincing anyone of anything. So Democrats are much better at harnessing and utilizing emotion because they have more at their disposal to work with. They have more to work with. They have Washington Post, New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, Vanity Fair, Esquire, The Atlantic, New York Magazine, New Yorker, Los Angeles Times, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver. They have everything at their advantage. Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much. Hope you're having a great Saturday. Thank you, Alice. It's all about harnessing emotion. It's all about harnessing emotion. This is like, you know, when 2008 happened, okay, the housing crisis and everything was imploding. People were saying, well, how did this happen? How did this happen? Well, the Bush administration was very good at harnessing emotion. They plunged the country into endless wars, and they harnessed a great deal of emotion. Bush and Sharon Isaacson, thank you. The Roaring Twenties, thank you, Sharon. Bush and President Obama were two sides of the same coin. President Obama should have been completely different from Bush. But Bush started the bailouts. President Obama continued, took credit for them. And Dodd-Frank, they haven't even addressed derivatives trading in Dodd-Frank. Okay? So, Sharon, thank you so very much. To my super chat, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Sharon, thank you. So, this is the Financial Times. U.S. put off derivatives rules for a decade. Sharon, thank you so very much. To my super chat, thank you. I can't do this without you, ladies and gentlemen. If you like the live streams, your super chat is just so important. U.S. put off derivatives rules for a decade before Archegos. Okay, so Sharon, thank you again. Rules written in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis to limit the potential for an Archegos collapse still have not been fully implemented. Still have not been fully implemented. So how President Obama is very similar to George W. Bush when it comes to regulation, at least pertaining to derivatives trades, which are the same shady, secretive investment vehicles that tanked the economy 14 years ago now. Hello. This is like Freddy Krueger coming back to haunt your dreams again. Rules written in the 2008 financial crisis to limit the potential for an Archegos capital have not been fully implemented. Why? Critical parts of the 2010 Dodd-Frank Act, an 848-page law meant to shore up big banks and temper excessive risk in the derivatives market, have been delayed again and again. What do you think's going to happen when the whole thing, what do you think, ladies and gentlemen, is going to take place when, Dave, hello. What do you think's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen, when the market actually does crash that one day? JG, yes. 5, 6. What do you think's going to happen? 7, 8. No, if Dodd-Frank is not regulating derivatives and Archegos went under, that Archegos was the canary in the coal mine or whatever. I mean, it was their doing. But if they collapsed because of derivatives trading, that was derivatives purchase on margin. The whole thing is insubordinate, exactly. The whole thing is derivatives purchased on margin. That's the whole thing. The whole thing is derivatives purchased on margin. So you have this margin, the margin debt. That's right, JG. That's right. This is all going to come collapsing down under mashed potato brains president. And you know what they'll say? It's because Build Back Better wasn't. They'll say it's because Build Back Better wasn't implemented. It's like, no, that's not why. It's because you pumped $10 trillion into the economy. And if you have, okay, so critics are now arguing that had regulators implemented the rules faster, the implosion of Bill Wang's family office and the multi-billion-dollar losses it cost two banks could have been limited. They don't even know how much debt, like they have the SEC and FINRA and these government bodies regulating the stock market. They don't even know how much debt these companies have because the companies are smarter than the regulators. It's just like, the Olympics and performance enhancements, and it's just like the competitors are always smarter than the people regulating them. Regulators. The competitors are always smarter than the people regulating them. Up to a point. Then the regulators get, more knowledge and, impose more, better tests or restrictions or regulate better. In particular, rules that would have governed the disclosure of Archegos derivatives trades are still not enforced. Wow. In particular, rules that would have governed the disclosure of Archegos derivatives trades are still not enforced, and neither are requirements for players to post initial margin payment meant to cover potential trading losses. Wang was able to place more than $50 billion on bets on the shares of a handful of U.S. and Chinese companies and could not pay his counterparties when they started going against him. Regulators had implemented Dodd-Frank at an anemic pace. It's been over 10 years and they're still not. It's been over 10 years and they're still not. Janet! Janet McGuffey, thank you! Thank you, Janet, as always. So kind of you. Thank you, Janet. Thank you so very much. I hope all is well. Hope you're having a great weekend. Thank you, Janet. So kind of you. Thank you. Janet, it's been over a decade since Dodd-Frank was passed, and they still haven't regulated derivatives trades. Janet, thank you again. Janet and Sharon, they still haven't regulated derivatives trades. Isn't that special? The church lady. Well, isn't that special? In particular, rules that have governed the disclosure of Archegos derivatives trades are still not in force. So, Janet, it's over a decade. They still haven't implemented this is the most important. Well, there are other important, but this is one of the most important elements of Dodd-Frank. It was supposed to be to prevent a collapse from derivatives. And these derivatives trades are contracts. These are contracts that are not subject to SEC or FINRA scrutiny. These are contracts that are private contracts between Janet, thank you again. These are contracts that are that are private contracts. Letty Schleiper, thank you so very much, Letty. Thank you so very much. So kind of you. Thank you, Letty. Greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. Sharon, thank you so much. Letty, thank you so very much, Letty. Thank you. Hope you're having a great Saturday. Thank you so very much. Hope you have a great weekend. Thank you, Letty. Okay, so hold on. Archegos. So Letty and Janet, here we go. What are the chances they want me to sign up to Bloomberg? What are the... No! Why? Why, Lord, have you forsaken me? With Bloomberg's paywall pop-up. Here, billions in secretive derivatives trades. Billions in secretive derivatives. Secretive. Letty, Janet, thank you so very much. To my super chat, thank you. The forced liquidation of $20 billion. Much of the leverage used was provided by banks, including Nomura and Credit Suisse. Letty, thank you again. Janet, thank you as always. Thank you. When investors, so the derivatives trades are actually private contracts. So, let's see, go ahead. One reason for the margin call occurs. Okay, letters to the New York family office contain the fallout after Archegos failed to meet margin calls. Okay, so much of the trades remain unclear, but market participants estimate that his assets had grown from 5 billion to 10 billion. He may have made $50 billion until it collapsed. So hold on one second. So here it says right here, okay? It says right here, Janet, Letty, everybody here, JG, Eric, Luke, everyone here. A large portion of the leverage was provided by the banks through swaps, according to people with direct knowledge of the deals. That meant Archegos didn't have to disclose its holding in regulatory findings, since the positions were not on the bank's balance sheets. So, through these derivatives contracts, if the bank lends money, they don't have to disclose how many billions they've lent. Isn't that special? And this is a small hedge fund that went under. This is a small hedge fund that went under. Imagine, Letty, thank you again. Janet, thank you again. Everybody here, thank you. So imagine, this is a small hedge fund that went under. Imagine you have a small hedge fund that went under, and they don't even rules written to ensure that government regulators the rules written to ensure that government regulators would know how much money banks were giving to hedge funds for them to use margin to purchase these contracts. Not there. Nobody knows. When you have that, we have $10 trillion in margin debt. When you have that 2,000 to 3,000 point drop now, when we had the 2,000 to 3,000 point drops in March of 2020, we didn't have $10 trillion in margin debt. When we had the 2,000 to 3,000 point drops in March of 2020, we didn't have the margin debt. $10 trillion in margin debt. Okay, AOC hadn't pushed for eviction moratorium after Democrats tanked the economy. And, you know, we didn't have the financial problems we had now. We had a good economy. It was a self-induced wound where we ended our economy. Now, when we have that market, that the day that people will say is a market crash, even though I've been saying that the market's been crashing, we've seen a market crash already, but it's not just a correction. And they say, what about 2018 with Trump? It's like, well, that's not, yeah, it wasn't a good year for stocks. So what? It's still, before Democrats ended economic activity, the market had been up. And Jerome Powell had no problem raising interest rates with Trump. No problem at all. Oh my God. Oh my God. They loved raising interest rates. But suddenly, you know what? They're like reluctantly raising interest rates because inflation is rampant and through the roof. But this all relates, ladies and gentlemen, to exactly what, why aren't people talking about the Durham probe? Well, Glasgow News. Salutations, Goodman from Glasgow, Scotland. Thank you so very much. Glasgow News, thank you. To my viewers in Scotland, thank you so very, very much. Greatly appreciated. Thank you, Glasgow News. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so very much. Glasgow News, we are heading, our country is heading to where in a handbasket. We have, thank you so very much, Glasgow News. Thank you. And thank you to everybody in Scotland watching. We had a law 10 years ago, Gleska News, that said, "Oh, we're gonna regulate all of these very risky investments that tanked the U.S. and eventually the global economy. And if we implement these laws, maybe we'll prevent another global catastrophe." And what's this? Rules written in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis to limit the potential for the hedge fund collapse have still not been implemented. Joe, thank you for watching in Denmark. Thank you. Still have not been implemented. Okay, and so that's why when we're living in an economic stock market bubble, people don't realize the indictments that are taking place. And look, Steele dossier founder testified before Durham's grand jury. And so we have more people who worked with the attorney that we were talking about a couple throughout this segment that was indicted. His colleague now testified before a grand jury. His colleague testified before a grand jury. And so it's only a matter of time before. And then you'll see the Durham probe. Once the market crashes completely, you'll see the Durham probe increase the indictments, or increase the pace of indictments, I should say. Brent, hello. You'll see that. You'll see that because people will be so disillusioned, and and I don't want people to lose money. I'm like Alec Baldwin. I can't speak. I won't speak. I don't want people to lose money. But unfortunately, when you pump $10 trillion into the economy, you cause inflation to go through the roof. Inflation is rampant. It's runaway inflation. And inflation is the worst thing that could happen to a country. And how did this happen? Because we ended economic activity. 2 years ago, we ended economic activity and we opened up a Pandora's box of problems. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Gleska News, Letty, Janet, everyone here, Sharon, the Secret Spaceship, J-Spot, everyone here, Timothy, everybody here, thank you so much. I will be back at around, I would say, 7:30, 8 p.m. Pacific, so be here. Be here at around 7:30, 8 p.m. Pacific. I might do an upload in between then. Monique, Secret Spaceship, thank you. Everybody here, thank you. I can't thank you enough, everyone. It's been absolutely wonderful. To my super chat, I can't thank you enough. So kind of you. And you really helped me with these live streams. And thank you. I'll be back in a couple of hours, everyone. Please check this channel. Subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. That will be below in the pinned comment. And ladies and gentlemen, God bless. Have a great, great evening. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Thanks, everybody.